Hi, I'm Jim.
And I'm David.
And this is the Practical Guitarist Podcast.
The podcast for people who eat, sleep, and breathe guitar. The Practical Guitarist Podcast is brought to you by Great Lakes Guitar Pickups. Great Lakes Guitar Pickups provides fantasy tones at prices a practical guitarist will love. Featuring top-notch construction, attention to detail, and a fully custom product, if you can dream it, Great Lakes Guitar Pickups can probably build it. Follow them on Facebook at facebook.com/Great Lakes Guitar Pickups. Are you a regular listener? Why not? David here reminding you of all the ways you can participate in the Practical Guitarist Podcast. Subscribe using your chosen podcast app. Review us on iTunes, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, or Google Play. Find our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/practicalguitarist or on Twitter as @practguitarist. Support the show. Merchandise is available in our Threadless store at practicalguitaristpodcast.threadless.com. And donate to us via Patreon, available at patreon.com/practicalguitarist. Reach out to us directly via email at questions@practicalguitarist.com.
Well, hello, David.
Hello, Jim. Jim's leading this episode because I'm having a fever dream as we speak.
Dave is a little bit out of it. He's practicing lucid dreaming.
I'm not even sure what I'm doing right now. Like, to be honest with you, I'm
gonna wake up tomorrow. It's all been a nightmare.
Computer and I've got the flu. I got influenza. You know, the head cold crap.
Yep.
And I've been incapacitated. Last night we were supposed to record. I was 2 sheets to the wind. It was like I was drunk. And then I didn't know if we were going to get to record today, to be honest with you. And then I was like, I got about 3/4 of the way through the day, and I'm like, fuck this, I'm going to do it. And then, because I felt pretty good, and now it's night, and now it doesn't feel so good. So
now
we're just going to... Yeah, if I fall asleep or something on the mic, I'm sorry, guys. Also, I want to apologize if I cough on the mic or anything like that. I'll try to mute it as best I can, but this is hell on earth. So, all right.
You said the word cough, and I had to cough.
Yeah, I mean, like, sometimes I think I'd rather go through a war than this. I mean,
well, I've been through war, and it's not as good.
No, I'm sure it's not. I'm sure it's not, but.
Yeah. So today we're going to talk. I actually came up with the idea for our today's topic. David will come up with some fantastic. Even in his sleep, he can do it better than I can. Yeah. Title for the show.
I think the title of the episode is probably going to be "Fever Dream" at this point.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. So we're going to talk about our practice regimes, and so I posted in the group earlier this week. I put together a question. I said, if I was to ask you how many hours a week you practice, what would your honest answer be? I got 10 hours, 5 to 7 hours. Most people were in the 10 to hours or so. I would say that that was about the average. And when I think about it, in a week, that's just about an hour a day.
Yeah,
that people putting aside. It's not really. I mean,
well, 10 hours is 2 during the work week. Well, it's 2 hours a day.
If you were only practicing 5 days a week, yeah.
Right.
I'm just saying on a 7-day week, that's less than 2 hours a day.
Yeah.
So let's give people, some people gave us 5. Some said they don't practice at all. So here's the thing that I wanted to go over. First of all, I'm not sure if people count practice because one listener said actual practice probably about a half hour.
Yeah, because what practices versus just sitting around and noodling are two different things. And so when I said 10 to 12 hours a week for me, that's not noodling. That's like sitting there actually doing something specifically, repeatedly, usually while watching TV or something stupid like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to get in on those. And so the one person, like I said 0 to a half hour And they said, the person said, if I'm playing at church, it's practice time with the band, so it's 3 to 4 hours total. I was actually kind of surprised by that, only because 3 to 4 hours total with a band. I'm going to go over how that's really not effective practice typically. So first thing that people would probably ask me how many hours of practice I get. I don't typically count playing with the band as practice.
No, that's a rehearsal. You're supposed to have your shit done when you come into rehearsal.
Right. So what I do when I get there is I go in and I typically do an hour and a half to 2 hours a day, depending on the kind of practicing I'm doing. If I have rehearsal that day, I'll probably only practice about an hour, 45 minutes before I go. And typically practice is, there's warm up in there, and there's scales, and typically I'll work on a solo I've never worked on before. I try to do that every day, believe it or not. And not for a long time, but that's part of my practice regime. So usually I'll warm up, I'll do something in a scale form, but I won't do a straightforward scale. Like I won't go, even if I'm doing pentatonics or I'm doing major minor scales, I'm not going to play the scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm going to play the scale effectively, like breaking it down into fifths or thirds, fourths, and trying to make it sound more musical. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm really big on etudes for everything. Mm-hmm. I don't believe there's a thing in this world that you can practice that you can't do with an etude. And the reason why etudes are important, well, they're not important. They give you they're a practice tool. So if you don't know what an etude is, it's an application of something. So
right.
You might have a tapping etude or something like that, where you can use it. It's actually a piece of music, and there's something going on behind it, and it sounds good to your ears. But it's not as boring to play as like, okay, so here I'm going to play this 1, 2, 3, 4 pattern. It's right. Not the same as that.
For example, an etude there are several etudes that have become songs. One of them was Slash's intro to what is it? Paradise Sun.
Crazy Train's the intro piece.
Crazy Train's
is
intro.
Also a speed builder.
Yep. What's the big gold or Guns N' Roses song? Everybody plays wrong at Guitar Center.
Sweet Child of Mine.
Sweet Child of Mine.
And I don't play it wrong, and I haven't played it at Guitar Center in probably a really long time. So
yeah,
I'm cool now. I'm cool now. I figured out how not to do that shit. Now, just so we're clear, I would never have admitted that had I not had this illness.
Yep. So yeah, Sweet Child of Mine, like you said, Crazy Train. That's another one you hear at Guitar Center. The intro to Dust in the Wind is another one. Using something that musically makes more sense and it's useful.
Yeah, it's like a workout. So, think about it that way.
Yeah, it's like a workout, exactly. But playing a whole scale pattern is not, unless you're using it like as an intro or as a movement from to. Typically, you're not going to play a whole scale from front to back.
Well, I used to, but that's because I'm an ignorant ass.
Yeah, but it wasn't musical, right?
No, and the thing is, like, you're never going to use. If I run a 2-octave scalar run, I'm never going to use that. So
let's ask this question of each other. Why would I learn a scale? What is the purpose of learning a scale? You need
the roadmap of the notes that you know what you're playing against. You do have to run scales, but I think if you break them up into smaller chunks, rather, because everybody wants to run from E to E string, and like you're almost better off to just go E to D and then G to E, and if you can do that, like on the those strings, then you're going to be in a lot better shape. And I actually find myself, the better tool I get now is to play, like, if I'm playing A minor in the 5th position, then I'll go A minor in the 7th position and then the 8th position and just go that way, because then you can get all the modes down, and it's really easy to visualize.
And another use of that is, like, typically what people will do is they move up the fretboard, they will also move up the strings. And when I say up the strings, I mean they will go to the thinner string, where a good practice is to move, start at the thinner strings and move your way up the fretboard, but down to the thicker strings, just so that you learn more about how the.
Yeah, I mean, for me, breaking the mold is like, instead of doing the 3-note per string scales,
Yep.
add a slide in there, get the fourth note on the the in between string. If you're doing 3-string scales, like you can really break the mold by trying to shift from going. I want to say this vertically, so from high E to low E, that would be vertical movement,
right?
Versus
Horizontal.
E at the 5th fret to E at the 12th, to the E string at the 12th fret, horizontal movement. You're going to get more. You're going to have more variety if you learn to do horizontal movement.
Yep, and that's what I was saying. So, but try to break your mold. There's nothing wrong.
If you're already doing horizontal, then figure the other out, because you're going to need both.
Right, that's what I was about to say. There's nothing wrong with playing horizontally, and there's nothing wrong with playing vertically. But it can be boring if all you do is one or the other.
No.
If you always go high, you always ascend and you never descend, that's boring. If you always descend and never ascend, that's boring.
So if that's an X and a Y axis, right?
Yes.
Horizontal and vertical, then the Z axis must be a tremolo bar, right?
Yes. And that's
it's a vibrato, but yeah.
Those are technique practice.
The Y axis.
So let's talk about effective
practice.
Right, effective practice. In the beginning, effective practice, it's just like the fat kid. No offense, because I'm fat too, so I'm just going to call it out like it is. The fat kid that goes to the gym. The first few weeks, the fat kid loses a ton of weight. Oh, look at me, I'm losing a bunch of weight because it's easy, because I'm fat, and it's easy for me to lose weight because it's really just weight that'll fall right off when I start exercising, right?
Man, I never had it easy. I'm fucking fatter than you are, and it has never been easy.
Well, I do. But anyway, as time goes on, though, that becomes more and more difficult for everyone because there's less and less difference between the end goal, and where you are. Now, so what is effective practicing? I would say for a beginner, playing the guitar is effective practicing. Now, that said, it's always a difference of, is your goal to learn to play your scales? Are you going to want to be able to improvise? Then you should start using some scales. You should learn how to go up and down the fretboard. And you should learn to do things musically. Now, that said, you have to know your alphabet before you can know how to write and read. We all learned our alphabet, then we learned our basic words, then we learned to read and write more and more fluently.
And how to curse at people.
Yeah, until you could get to J.R.R. Tolkien and you could read a book and understand it.
There's not a swear in Tolkien.
No.
There's none.
But if you've been a person who could read and you could stand in front of a class, you were the one that could, sit down and say, consumer product ownership registration, product, microwave oven, model.
Fuck this.
But were you able to create that? And that is the difference between the person that can regurgitate what they've seen or heard, and the person that can create from their mind something that they hear that other people haven't heard.
Can we talk about so one thing people leave fuck off. The one thing people
you're
leave
dreaming. You don't even know what the hell you're talking about.
I really don't. I mean, I could be spewing bullshit right now. It's probably going to happen. Most of what I say is bullshit anyway. No, if we back off for a second and we're talking about technique training, the one critical part of training that everyone neglects, there's two of them. One is rhythm training. So use your fucking metronome. And you don't even have to have an instrument to do that. I mean, you can literally just turn on a metronome and clap along to it. And then the other one is getting really, really hammered. No, the other one is ear training.
Yes.
And ear training is freaking huge. Well, good. I'm touching on your point, son.
Yeah. Thank you very much for pissing in my Wheaties.
Yeah. I hope they taste really bitter.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. So once you know your alphabet, once you know those things, one of the things that is important, well, those two things are extremely important. So rhythm training. It's very important to have rhythm. So one of the earliest recollections I have practicing as a child was my aunt would have me mute the strings of the guitar and she said, just strum. Listen to the strum and make sure it's on time. And then what she would do to have me practice timing, I don't know if I've mentioned this before, is she would have the radio on. She would have a song going.
That's good.
And then she would just random song, then turn the radio off.
Right, and then turn it back up just to see where you were.
Right, and I was expected to go. And she would start with 5 seconds. She would go to 10 seconds. You would be so surprised how far you could drift.
Oh, fuck yeah. You'll be off by 2 beats.
Oh, yeah. You'll be way off. And you'll think, no, I'm right on. Because
10 seconds is a lot of time.
It is. And it will go by. I mean, when you think about it, a lot of solos are 10 seconds long.
Yeah, they are.
Most of them aren't even that long.
Like between 10 and 20 seconds. Your big epic stuff is longer, but I mean, the vast majority of what you think of as a guitar solo is like less than 30 seconds.
Yeah, 8 to 12 seconds, yeah.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people, when you talk about a 4 bars in what is your typical song, 90 to 110 beats a second, or I mean a minute, sorry. That'd be real fast.
Yeah, yeah.
So
fuck that.
You're talking about really a very small amount of time. You'd be surprised at how far off you can be. And if you're the kind of person that doesn't have that timing, then you're either going to push or pull the band as you play. You'll push or pull the rest of the band, depending on whether you have a tendency to go on top of or behind a beat.
Right.
So then the other one, like you said, is ear practice. So the other thing that she would do, she would take very simple songs. Like I remember a song about bananas, 10,000 bananas or something. And it was a whole Harry Chapin song, right? That was one of the ones we worked on, and she would work on like simple riffs like don 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 boom 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 boom. So learning how to play that and saying, okay, where are those notes, in reference to each other? And then of course you were working on. I would work on chords as well, and then she would say, what does that song sound? What are those chords? Now that you're playing them outside of the rest of the music, what does it sound like? And she would try to get me to associate chord progressions and say, oh, you know what? If I move that to A, it sounds like this song. If I move it to B, it sounds like this song. So forth. Yeah. And that teaches you what? What does that teach you?
How to transpose.
Right. Transposition and intervallic listening. Because you may not have perfect pitch. You don't need perfect pitch. But if you can figure out the root note and you have intervallic pitch, which most of us have as musicians, we hear intervals.
Yeah, especially, and that comes with time too. And it's not necessarily something you have to develop in order to actually have intervallic pitch, but it certainly helps.
Right. Yeah, and a good way to do that is to play a third and then sing a third. Play a third, sing a third. Play a fourth, sing a fourth. And then your major and minor and so on and so forth. And you're diminished and demolished. So and you're agnostic and augmented.
Whole tone, motherfucker. Whole tone.
You're agnostic.
All I know is I have the whole tone. All right.
We used to call them agnostic and demolished chords. So.
Oh my gosh.
And then after time, obviously, you're going to go into where start thinking about the things that you do. So as you get more advanced. Most people, I think, if you asked somebody, what would you call yourself? Would you call yourself intermediate, advanced, intermediate? What would you call yourself?
I'm advanced.
All right. So David has a high, opinion of himself.
I would consider professional beyond advanced.
Yeah.
And
we have a different sliding scale. For me, I still consider myself an advanced intermediate because I'm not professional. So I don't see myself as a guy who.
Here, let's break this down. Let's do 1 to 10, right? I would see myself as like a 6.
All right. Yeah. See, I'd see myself as like a 5, 4.5, 5. That's where I would be. I wouldn't put myself up there at 6 because there are a lot of things that I don't know theory wise, because there's still things that I'm still learning, and I don't have any problem. That's the one thing you have to. Be honest with yourself. If you can't be honest with anybody else, be honest with yourself.
Yeah.
Because if you're not honest with yourself about where you are. You walk into it, let's say, you know what, you're like, oh, I don't need guitar lessons. I'm too good for that. Okay. But if you're still playing sloppy and you're still, incapable of playing the things you really want to play well, regardless of, I'm not going to say right like the record, because that's not a good measurement. But whatever you have as a measurement, if you're not there, lessons aren't going to hurt you.
Right.
So anyway, let's talk about, so as you move forward, application of theory becomes more important, right? Now, whether you know what the theory is or it's just sounds in your head, you're still using theory.
Yeah, everybody does. I mean, anybody who sits and says, okay, so an A minor chord goes really well with G, and then an E minor or E major chord, depending on what you're doing. Like, that's theory. That's what that is.
Right. And you may not even know what those chords are called. You're like, I just know that this chord
goes well with this chord, right?
Right. But you're still using a theory. You have a theory as to what works with what. You also then, as you get more and more advanced in time, you learn how you can break rules that are set. So you can say, oh, you know what? G major is normally what I would play, but can I use this minor? Will it work, even though it's an outside tone based on, the major scale? And, as we've said before, as long as you use, I honestly think any note is good as long as you don't sit on quote unquote bad notes for a long time. Or if you're in jazz, you play that note 3 times just to make sure everybody knew that's where you really wanted to play.
Yeah.
I'm just messing around, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Yes, I do.
So now, the next thing I want to talk about is how much time do you spend actually practicing? And I want to talk about that in some specifics. So first, you want to talk about specific types of practice, right? I suggest anybody warm up. I was in the Guitar Zoom community. Someone said that they were their fingers were slicing on the strings, and everybody was like, "You just play through it. You bleed all over the guitar." I'm like, "Well, first of all, you're not being paid to play guitar.
If your fingers are being cut by the strings, then there's something wrong."
Right. You need to step back and you take a break and start looking at ways you can protect your fingers. Some people, it could be because you're in a dry climate, not have enough water. It could be that you have delicate skin. I mean, there's a lot of different reasons.
Yeah.
This is an older guy. It could have been easily.
He could be on medication that could be causing it even.
Right.
I mean, that's
exactly.
So it happens. There are things you can do to prevent that, or at least to alleviate that. I've known people who've actually played with Band-Aids on. Like, I can't do that, but
there was a time when I had to get through a gig and I had to put they call it fake skin or something.
Yeah, the new skin. New skin.
Yeah.
My wife had to use that recently.
Not on my left hand. Yeah, not on my fretting hand. I had to put it on my quote unquote picking hand.
Yeah.
Or could I say plucking hand? My whole index finger from the end all the way up through the
first knuckle
nail, all the way up to the knuckle, was bleeding all over the place. So during a break, I took a bottle of liquid skin. I just stuck my finger in it.
Well, that's fucking painful though too.
Oh, it hurt like the hubs I had.
Because nobody tells you, like, oh yeah, new skin's the greatest thing on earth. My wife had to use it. She was just finished up cosmetology school. She got licensed. Congratulations. And she was talking about, because the shears they use, they're Japanese folded steel. They're like no joke. And she cut herself, and she's like, oh, I got to take a test tomorrow. I got to use new skin. And it was the first time she'd used it, and she was just screaming because it hurt so bad. Like, she could not imagine it hurting like that.
I don't know what do they call it, an analgesic or whatever that they put on that thing.
Yeah.
Ouch.
It's like, this is what they need to make liquid Novocaine available for.
Exactly. So that's one of the things that I think, is important. When you're practicing, make sure you warm up. We talked about that with Steve Stein last week.
Yeah, warm up.
Yep. Make sure you warm down too. It's just like working out. It really is.
So can I be real for a minute?
Yeah.
I didn't have to warm up. I never warmed up as a guitar player until probably, when I started getting into this Yngwie stuff, I could start to feel the need to warm up. Yeah. And I mean, I'm not, Jim, you've heard me, I'm not exactly a slow player by any means, but to improve the accuracy of what I was doing, I really have to make sure that I've run some stuff underneath my fingers, or at least warmed them into the faucet or whatever. And the other thing, you're talking about warming down. I've never found that to be as vital, but I have noticed now that I'm getting older, I'm starting to get a little bit of arthritis and stuff going on. I have an autoimmune disorder. I have Crohn's disease. And I've always been concerned about that, and I'm starting to feel it now. And I think that when I do make the effort to play some just like kind of nicer, cleaner blues licks at the end for about 5 or 10 minutes,
right,
it feels better an hour or so later.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying. So when I say warm down, I just mean slow down a little bit, play some slower licks at the end. I was listening to Rush, and they were, you listen to their live stuff, and he was talking about how they used to warm up and warm down, backstage. They being Alex and Geddy. The drummer Neil, he would warm up and warm down before and after a gig in the green room, so to speak. So the thing is that Geddy would talk about the fact that he had to warm up and warm down, and the way that they did it was they would pick the songs that allowed them to warm up vocally and physically into the music, and then come back down.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Speaking of warming up and warming down, I'm going to take a segue and then we'll come back to the practice thing. I saw Malmsteen 2 weeks ago, and you were getting a bunch of messages when I was at the show because I was there like 2 hours before the gig, and the doors were closed and they were on stage, and it was definitely Mr. Malmsteen himself. And you would not believe the stuff they were using to warm up. It was hysterical. They're up there playing Lazy from Deep Purple, which, of course, Yngwie's a big Deep Purple guy anyway. But all kinds of crap, like nothing that you would hear in their set. Blues, like 12-bar blues. They were playing some Journey. Like, it was crazy. I'm standing there, and I wish I could have recorded it, because I know my phone wouldn't have been able to pick up the sound through the door. But like, it was pretty enlightening to hear that somebody like Yngwie does come out right before the set and does play for 20 or 30 minutes. But on another part of this, we were sitting with a guy who's a Desert Storm vet. It was super nice. We were all talking and stuff, and he had a big thing for Lita Ford. Anyway, he was going on about how he ran into the other band in the lobby, the opening band, and he asked him if they got to jam with Yngwie before the show, and the guy goes, or I guess the guy in the other band goes, you know what? He's like, honestly, Yngwie's kind of pretentious. He's off by himself doing his own thing, and I'm just laughing because I'm like, no, he wasn't. I just heard him no more than an hour ago, playing this stuff in the before they opened the doors. Like, he wasn't pretentious at all. Like, he was out there just having a good time. And it was funny because they'd crack the doors and look in there, and you'd see him up there, and he was a big smile on his face, like having fun with the band. But then, he goes out game face mode, and like 3/4 of the stage is Yngwie, and then like this little corner has like a keyboard player, a drummer, and a bass player. Like, when I say tiny area, it's probably 15 by 15. And then the rest of the stage is like 90 by 90 or something. Anyway.
And that's all Malmsteen. I got more to say about that later, but
yeah,
we'll get to that after the practice stuff. So again, the warming up doesn't have to be a big, long thing. It can be 3 to 5 minutes. When you're younger, 2 or 3 minutes, but you still want to warm up. You do not want to get into bad habits early on, and you don't want to get to where you injure yourself early on. I mean, you hear about it from all the pros about how they had to have, stuff taken care of.
Well, that's why I've always said get a teacher in the beginning, because they're going to tell you, like, they can look at what you're doing and see when you're holding the pick like Marty Friedman and giving yourself tennis elbow before you even like get off the ground.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's really important to start with a good solid foundation. Get 6 lessons in the beginning. I don't care if you want to go it alone. get 6 lessons in the beginning.
Yeah, was it Marty Friedman? Did he play with
He was Megadeth.
Megadeth? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just saw a recent interview
and
with him
Cacophony
talking about a
and
lot
other
of the
stuff.
injuries. Yeah, he was talking about how a lot of the injuries that he had because he moved to Japan, right?
He's a TV personality in Japan as well now.
Yep, that's the guy. And
No Guitar Safe?
Yep.
Because he was just on there.
Was he?
Yeah.
No, it wasn't that. It wasn't that though. It was something else. Anyway, he did this interview and he was talking to them and it was Sweetwater or somebody. No, actually it was Guitar Center. They've gone to where they're starting to smarten up and do some stuff. And anyway, they were talking to him and he was talking about how he injured himself and he was given a little bit of advice on that. So then make sure that whatever it is that you're planning to practice it specifically. I saw recently, I don't know if you followed Justin Guitar, but he's been teaching the Captain from Lee Anderton and the Captain.
Yeah.
And so the Captain did 9 practices things. And then he was like, you know what? I didn't get anything from it because we were too busy trying to make videos. We didn't look at this. So what he's done now is he goes, you guys are here just so I can show you that I didn't get anything from that either. And we're just going to put the camera on and you guys are flies on the wall and you'll watch me go through the stuff. So he was very specific about practice regime. Justin Guitar gave him, very specific things to practice. And it was interesting to watch the Captain struggle with some of this stuff that I thought he would fly right through. And it's because just like when you were showing me how to do the economy picking thing.
Yeah.
I never economy picked before. And that was,
yeah.
I was still struggling to get it right.
That's a hell of a skill to learn too. It takes years to get it right.
Yeah.
And I know there are some people that just naturally get economy picking right out of the gate. I'm not one of them. I had to develop it. And actually, my guitar teacher used to call it circular picking. And he was like, you do it in this circular motion. And honestly, that was a big help, but I have to practice it. I have to literally say, okay, I'm going to run 2 octave scales from E to E, doing nothing but straight economy picking.
Right.
And now I'm learning that there are other ways to cheat doing descending runs, but we can talk about that another time.
And that was one of the things that Justin was going over with the Captain. So I thought it was interesting. But the point that I want to make there is when you set up your practice regime, make sure if you say, I'm going to practice an hour today or I'm going to practice half hour today, decide what it is you're going to do. Because if you go ADD on yourself, you're not going to get anything out of it. And if you just sit down and practice playing the same shit you've been doing all the time, you're going to get really good at playing that shit, but you don't get good at playing anything else.
Yeah.
You don't get good at what's outside of your current box. I'm always trying to learn something new. I mean, I play country, jazz, folk, rock, funk.
I don't think about genre anymore. Do you know what I think about? Technique. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to learn how to do this today, or I'm going to work on, what's the chicken picking? Like that's what I'm going to work on today. And so you have to have a plan too, because if you practice it one day and then you don't come back to it, you're
right. Then what's the point? Exactly. You're not going to get much out of that. So the thing that you should try to get out of it is, what are my long-term goals? And then that way you don't, just like weight loss, you don't say, oh, shucks, I didn't lose 25 pounds today, or I didn't learn that Yngwie Malmsteen solo today. Now I suck because I didn't learn it today.
Yeah, Jim didn't learn Black Star, so
no, I suck. I suck ass. I'm awful at that stuff. I am still working on. Not that I'm giving up though.
No,
someone might say, "Well, geez, you're 54 years old. You should give up." No, I'm not giving up.
No. You got to learn that stuff anyway. If you feel like I know people in their 50s playing Django stuff, and that's a challenge, especially if you play it correctly. Because
exactly,
he only had 2 fingers.
Right, and that was what I was getting at earlier. Not that I was trying to brag about the genres, but saying is each one of those is a different way of expressing the same type of tones.
Right.
Notes and choices of notes and rhythm, playing on top of the beat, behind the beat.
So I notice a lot of people, when we talked about this on the show, is people buy gear because they haven't figured out how to develop a clean note style to begin with. And, it looks like the overdrive pedal du jour is somehow going to improve the basic sound you're getting out of guitar. But honestly, if you're not happy with what you sound like clean, meaning, and I'm not just talking about separation between notes and those kind of things, but just like the way a note resonates and stuff that can be controlled by which part of your fingertip you're using. And that's what you need to think about and develop. And that's why I think, these people that are in their first or second year and they're throwing all this money at gear, I just shake my head and I'm going, what are you doing? Like, you haven't even figured out how to make a note sound more muscular yet. Like, you haven't even gotten there. So.
Exactly. You haven't learned how to do the basic things yet. How are you going to try to get to that more advanced stuff? So the next thing, I have these little notes I wrote for myself so we could stay on track. And that is rehearsal. The reason I wanted to say that rehearsal is not really practice is that rehearsal is doing the stuff you already know how to do, or at least you should know how to do it before you walk in there. Now, that doesn't mean that rehearsal is not a workout.
No, when I say rehearsal is for you to take the music you already learned for the band, put it together, and find out what you need to tweak to make it work better as a band. Right. That's what it's for.
Right. Now, if you're writing music with other musicians, then yes, there is a creativity involved in that band rehearsal. But a lot of times you've already got riffs and you've got things like that you've worked out. And rehearsal is more about, like you said, honing the finer details in a band situation. So I'm not so sure. Now, personally, I don't count band rehearsal as practice because even though I might say, oh, you know what, I'll change these notes or I'll change those notes, and there's not really a lot of that going on.
No.
Mostly it's just playing stuff over and over until we get it right.
It's getting used to the timing of the rest of the people because a band is a fluid thing. You can practice with a metronome till you're blue in the face. And I've said this to people in groups and forums before. Look, I don't care that you're playing to a track, which is synced to a metronome, because it doesn't mean anything. When you get in a room with 5 guys and the drummer's speeding up and slowing down a little bit, and even a good drummer, a great drummer, will have some of that going on. You have to be able to compensate. You have to be able to play a behind the beat, on the beat, and before the beat when needed. I ran into I was listening to Steve Vai's Ultrazone record, and there are places on there where the phrasing is so good because he's actually able to lay off the beat. And it's like, if you were to perform this live, you'd have to do that. Otherwise, the tune's not going to work. And I was just shocked by how much of that there was on that record. But that's a clear thing where in rehearsal, you have to tell the drummer, you're just going to play. I'm going to be a little bit behind you. Don't try to compensate.
Right. And those are things that you work on together. Matter of fact, with the band I'm in now, I was talking to one of the other singers, and I said, listen, you're coming in behind the beat. This is pop music. It's a pop song. We were doing Footloose.
Yeah.
And I was like, you have to be dead on it. You have to be right on the beat. Not behind it. Not ahead of it.
You don't get to phone that one in.
Nope. Because otherwise you take it from being danceable and fun to, you want to make it your own? Fine, make it your own. But you know what you're not going to get? You're not going to get the response you're looking for. If you're a dance band, you're looking for people to dance to it, and it's a well-known song, don't try to make it your own. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. Next one is when you practice, do you have complete isolation? Are you away from the kids and the wives and the friends and the phones and so on and so forth? Believe it or not, I put my phone on mute, I flip it upside down, and I put it in the other room. Sometimes I'll put it on a charger, sometimes I don't, which then I look at it, I go, oh crap, it's at 23%. But that's beside the point. The important thing in there is that you want to have some kind of just you and the guitar, which again, that's why I know that you said you practice. Sometimes you'll be sitting and running a scale while you're watching TV. You have enough knowledge of that scale to be able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, even if I'm learning something, I'll play it. I get things really quick. Unfortunately, I'm blessed with that. So like I was working on some stuff out of this book the other day, and honestly, I would play it 2 or 3 times out of the book, and then I would be like, all right, I'm done. I don't need the book anymore. Close the book, go do my thing.
Right.
And that's, but not everybody can do that. If you can't, don't sit in front of the TV. Don't sit with don't sit with everybody in the room. Like honestly, I can't practice. If I had to practice with nobody in the room, I'd be screwed. I live in a 900 square foot condo.
Right.
There's no way I can get away with that.
Exactly.
So you have to train yourself to be able to shut everything out.
But if you were one of those kids who had to get some isolation to get your homework done, or you had to have isolation to be able to read, then you should definitely get isolation when you're playing your guitar.
Just go to your local high school and get a case of ADHD. It'll be fine.
It's awesome.
Yep.
I caught it last week.
I have it.
So
I've had it for years.
Yep. When you look up information on Google and YouTube, do you tend to get distracted? A lot of people, they'll get on there and they're like, they'll get onto YouTube to say, oh, yeah, I'm going to look up how to play that song.
Yeah, and then you're like, ooh, DOD 250 video over the sidebar.
Yeah. Oh, man. And then you're like, oh, wow, what did President Trump do this week? What?
No, I don't think I would watch that anymore.
Yeah. And the next thing you know, you're off watching 1972 Nixon versus whoever. In other words, don't get caught up in something. Have your formula, have your time, and do your stuff, in a consistent pattern. If you're going to sit down like you were talking about, I do that too. But what I'll do is when I'm with when I've got the TV, because I can't hear one thing and play another. I'm just not capable of that. I know there's people that can. What I do is I play whatever I hear on the TV. So unless there's no music and it's a dialogue only thing where I can play something, I'll play I can play you almost every jingle I've ever heard. The intro to da 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 da.
So I don't do the jingles, but I'll play along with them. I'll solo over them or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's happened.
It's just because I hear it, da da da.
It's good practice.
Yeah. It's how I learned to play Halloween. That intro to Halloween. So if you do it, make it something useful. And I want to close my part of it by saying this: if you're not getting anything out of practice, you're doing it wrong for you.
Yep.
Do something else. Find some other thing. Take a lesson. Do an online lesson. I mean, how much did you say there was a musician you said you could get lessons from?
There's a lot of them out there. I mean.
But
they range anywhere from $20 an hour to $200 an hour, depending on who you want to do it with.
But you'd be surprised at how inexpensive it would be for you to take lessons from someone like Greg Koch. You don't have to take a ton of lessons from him. Take one lesson from the guy.
Yeah, and that's how he's set up too.
Yeah, take a lesson from Andy Alador. Take a lesson from look up folks that do online lessons. The guy that does music is Tyler Larson. These people.
Chappers
awesome.
used to.
Yeah, Chappers used to. I don't think he does it anymore.
I don't know.
One-on-one anymore. I don't know.
Don't really care.
But Rabia might.
Yeah.
But
I'd be more interested in him.
And I think who's the they call him not the Dutchman, the
yeah, no, that guy's legit though.
Oh
that
yeah,
guy's playing is
Honore?
Yeah, stupidly good.
But he is not just stupidly good. He's actually stupidly famous.
Yeah, I know.
Touring and
he's
studio
a Thomas Blug over there.
Yeah,
he's gets used for everything. And
yep. So look up things, reach out, find out who you can get a lesson from, and get a lesson. And do these things. Even if it's a local musician, talk to him. Say, hey man, do you mind if if we get together and teach me some of these things?
Yeah,
that you do?
And they'll do it for money. Everyone will.
Almost all of them will do it for money. Some will do it for free. A couple of beers and a chance to hang out with somebody other than their wives.
Right. So, I don't know. I want to close the book on this.
That cat.
So, which
he
one?
had his little face up next to your arm.
No, he's looking to see what's going on up here because the other cat's in the corner.
I can't see the other one.
Yeah, she's up in the corner, by the Paul Reed Smith wood stuff. All right. So I was at the music store this weekend. I'm always at the music store. Bought a new gig bag. I needed a gig bag. My old Fender gig bag was starting to come apart, and it's just a piece of crap anyway. The only thing Fender makes decent are guitars. A lot of the products that I've had from them that are not guitars are not great. I'm generalizing. I know they make good shit too. Just, bear with me. I'm not feeling well. That's my excuse tonight, and I'm sticking to it. So anyway, I went to the music store, and I'm gonna try to get this out without losing my voice. But we're gonna work through it. So Pat was talking about they had somebody come in the store and do something that was really fucking stupid. I'm gonna be completely honest. It was fucking dumb. Not gonna talk about them. What I want to talk about is it brought up the fact that they had a review on or it wasn't Craigslist. It was Yelp or something like that. Yelp, I think. Yellow Pages, whatever. Somebody reviewed them and said, "You guys suck. Was treated rudely. Was thrown out of the store. Treated me like garbage. Never been treated like this. And the prices at Guitar Center are better." And all this other crap. Well, first off, the prices at Guitar Center are the exact same. Pat works really hard to make sure that their prices for the stuff they're selling are the same as what you're going to pay at Guitar Center. That's because he doesn't want to have to argue with people about pricing. You used to go to mom and pops and they'd be slightly more. It was because they knew that you knew that. And then you would say, "Oh, well, I can get this at Guitar Center for this." And they go, "Okay, I'll give it to you for that." And if you were a poor sucker and didn't know that, then you were going to pay full price. Pat doesn't do that shit. So, first off, he pulled up the review and he read it out loud. If I'd had the forethought, I would have got it up for this episode. But it brought up an interesting point. The guy had his side of the story, which was that I was treated like an asshole and then kicked out of the store. And Pat had his side of the story, which is probably more accurate. Pat says, guy came in with his kid, right? He had this "my shit doesn't stink" attitude with his son, like he just pulling down $4,000 guitars off the wall, which have stickers on them that say, "Please ask for assistance," right? Because I want to make sure somebody's serious. I'll explain why here in a minute. But Pat had an altercation with the kid because the kid was playing. He basically picked up every used guitar, and then half the guitars off the new wall. And then he walked over to I believe it was a Mesa Boogie, and he put his foot up on it while he was playing it. Now, we're not talking about a stock Mesa Boogie amp. We're talking about an amp that had, Taurus vinyl or something on it. It's a special. It wasn't Taurus. It was a special covering and everything. And it's like, come on, man. Like, what the fuck? This is not your personal play place. So Pat walks over and he's real nice. And what he says is, "If you have any questions or anything I can help you with, yeah, look, I gotta tell you, please don't put your feet on the equipment, right? Just like that. Not a huge deal." And then, meanwhile, the father is picking up bases off the wall. Pat goes over and he says, "Hey, can I help you with anything? Is there anything in particular you have any questions about?" And the guy goes, "No." He's like, "I don't even play bass." He's like, "I just like messing around with them." So at this point, Pat's kind of getting frustrated. And he said, "Look," he said, "we don't have a come in and play policy. If you're interested in buying something, you're interested in, coming in and playing some of the instruments, like that's one thing, but you need to have a conversation with us about what you're looking for and those kinds of things. And,
right.
This is not a come in and screw up everything kind of atmosphere." And the reason for this is, and they're old school, right? So the reason for this is when you go to a guitar store, a lot of guitar stores don't care about what the instruments on the rack look like. Those are the places that don't give a shit about it, whoever comes in and plays them. I've been in Good Time, and I've had him pull out limited edition instruments and put them in my hands, and him tell me, "Be very careful with the pick. We really don't want to put any scratches in this guitar because it's probably going to go to a collector," kind of deal. Or even every guitar I touch, they pick it up and they take a rag and they wipe all the fingerprints off. It's the little touches like that. When you buy a $4,000 guitar, you don't want anything. You don't want to think that anybody has touched it. You know what I mean? Like, you don't want to think that anybody has touched it and spit on it or whatever. So that's my point, is like guitar etiquette. When you go into a store, and I'm not talking about Guitar Center because they have an open play whatever you like policy. Understand that there's a lot of money wrapped up in everything you pick up. And it's not just your money, it's the store's money. So if you do come in with that kind of attitude and you devalue something, like putting your foot up on a $3,000 Mesa Boogie dual rectifier or something, that's just shitty. Don't do that. Like, try to be respectful. Understand that, these guys have a store for you to come in and actually be able to try some of these things as they come out and make a decision about whether you want to buy them or not. Now, Pat's not going to tell you, hey, no, don't play that. I don't think you're interested kind of deal. But it's like, look, you didn't come in here just to fart around and play all the damn guitars. You would do that, go home. I'm sure you got guitars home. The one thing about the guy that he told me, though, that's really funny, and I'll bring it up just to bring some humor into this discussion. So the guy says, he's like, he was picking up an electric guitar. He picked up a Paul Reed Smith. He goes, why does this guitar only have 3 wound strings? Most of the guitars I've ever seen have 4 wound strings. And he explains.
So obviously he's only been playing acoustics.
Yeah, it's like you have 0 experience with this, and you're making a comment like we fuck up our guitars or something before we put them out. That's the kind of customer he was dealing with. So, I don't know. Just be respectful when you go in these places. Don't give these guys a hard time.
I saw something very similar to that where one of the podcast folks, I'm not going to mention any names, was talking about how it was just inconvenient for him to try out guitars at this Guitar Center he went to because they were up high and locked onto the things. And I'm like, first of all, they're trained not to engage someone. If they run out the door, they don't engage them. So that's insurance, type stuff. So and number 2, you kind of do want to, like you said, make sure that the people taking stuff down, almost everybody wants to think, oh, I'm going to be, I'm going to be careful, and we usually are. But if you're just there to, like, I'll go to Guitar Center, I see the same kids playing the same guitars in Guitar Center every day. I swear to God, that's their practice place.
Yeah, well, that's what he's talking about, is the people that come in and use the place as a practice space.
Yeah, and that's not what it is. That's not what it's for. Buy a guitar, take it home.
The other way to think about this is every time you pick up an instrument at the store, that costs them money. You don't realize it, but it costs them money because they may have to do work to sell it. They may have to, just wiping it down. That's labor hours.
Exactly.
People don't think about that stuff, and it's shitty. And it used to not be that way. It used to be that people were respectful of the place they went. But Jim, you're going to hate me for this, but this is the Guitar Center culture, and this is the Sam Ash culture. These big retail outlets who basically will let you play whatever you want, and it did for years. Now they've just started to lock things up in the last 5 years. Well,
there used to be that room that you could only get into.
Depended on the store. Some of my Guitar Center here are all open. They don't have any locks or anything.
Yeah, see, now that's what it's like.
Well, no, they were that way 10 years ago. I mean, 15 years ago even.
Oh, yeah.
The Villa Park store is like that. I know the Naperville stores. The Naperville store, they did put in a VIP room now. But they've started to lock things down because they're having the same damn problems. And look, they created this culture of buy it, take it home, try it out, and then bring it back.
Well, here's what kills me is people will say, oh, yeah, then it's a big problem. And yet those same people are like, I would go to my local mom and pop and I could play anything all the time. And I wanted to say, you are so full of shit.
Yeah, and your mom and pop fucking hates you.
Right. Yeah. Unless you were buddies. That mom and pop did not want you in there playing every guitar that they had.
Yeah.
I think most of those people they've got fond memories of things that never happened.
Yeah, or they just don't know any better, and they don't know that the guy behind the counter is like, what the fuck? When is this guy going to leave?
Exactly, because they weren't going to engage.
There was no way they were going to buy anything. And I go into some of these stores, and I'm starting to lose my voice, but I go into some of these stores and I say, look, come in. I'm looking for this kind of guitar. I'm going to try a few out. I'm not buying one today. Is that cool? Because I want them to know, like, this is a potential sale on down the road. Don't think I'm not coming back. Understand that I am in the market. I just am not prepared to pull the trigger yet. And they tend to respect that. Of course, I'm frequent so many damn music stores around here. They all know me now at this point. But even the guys at Guitar Center are starting to know me. And I'm kind of embarrassed by that.
That's very embarrassing.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about one more thing that I heard about today. So this morning I get up and Andertons has put up a video about the new Fender amplifier. I'm like, there's a new Fender amplifier, and it's the 50 XL Champ. So
What?
yeah. So what they've done is they've put together. Now it is the most non-news, which is why I think nobody really heard about it. So if you look up the 50 XL Champ 50 XL,
it's a competitor for the Katana 50.
you got it. They're saying it's a competitor for the Katana 50. I'm going to tell you right now, no effing way.
Not a 50 watts, because Fender
It's
50 watts in their solid state is like 15 watts from anybody else. I mean, they're quiet as shit.
Well, they did a side by side. Peter Norre and Rabia Masad did a side by side. Musically, they are pretty close. Volume wise, everything, they were pretty close. The thing that you don't have the computer input for the Fender. You don't have any. I mean, it just or the computer output where you could record out of it. It was like, wait a minute, this is like a non guitar amp. It's just the 40 bigger.
Yeah, it's 10 watts bigger, which is really amounts to nothing. And the 40 watt was not loud enough to carry a room, like for practicing, in my opinion.
Nope.
Because you're not going to get any feedback or anything like that going on. So I don't know, man. Like the Fender Champ line is just. We're talking about the what do they call them? The Mustangs and all that, right? That's similar to this Champ, or is this similar to the Super Champ?
No, this is more like the Super Champ. This is more like.
All right, then I'm not going to say anything bad. I had a Super Champ. I actually liked it. I honestly think it's probably one of the better, cheaper Fender amps.
I just think for $220, you spend the extra few dollars and you get yourself.
Is it tube or solid state?
Solid state.
It's pointless. Don't bother.
Exactly.
Save your money.
That's what I'm saying. If you're going to that, go to the.
Just get the Katana and be done with it.
Yep. And honestly, if I was doing a Katana, I'd get 100. I wouldn't even bother with the 50.
Yeah, the 50. So, having shot them all out side by side, the 50 is boxy. The 100s is it's the right cabinet and it's the right speaker for the cabinet, and it sounds better. Probably I would say 25% to 30% better. It's worth the extra money.
Yeah.
So
even if you just do the 1x12 Katana 100, you've got the things that you get with the 100. Other than the extra head end or headroom, is you've got the effects loop, you got the record out. There's so much more stuff you can do with the 100. The foot switches, instead of just being like switching between your favorite channels, you can actually control your effects and stuff. And you can put like a volume pedal.
Yeah. And I don't know. I feel like this $200 50 giggable amp thing, 50 watt solid state combo. I just feel like it's a market that really doesn't need to exist.
I do have firsthand experience with 50s, 51x12s, solid state combos in a gig market, and I do see them, and they are working. They are there. They are working. And for the club musician and even the solo artist, I still think that it's a market that is there.
Sure. No, sure. I completely agree. And I have a Katana head, so I'm smoking the Katana pipe too. But when I stop and I think about this market space and I go, if you're a gigging musician, what is the entry level for gigging now? Is it, because it used to be like Crate GFX, 200 or 100 watt, solid state amp, which was like $300.
Yeah, I still think the Katana 100 is the more realistic gigging amp than the.
I know people 50. That are playing gigs with a 50 though.
Yeah, I do too.
So I guess what I'm saying is that, are we setting the bar too low now? Because we know, look, any 50-watt amp that's under $250 is going to have some sort of compromise needed to make that thing come into the price. For the Katana, the 50-watt speaker is different. The cabinet is different. The cabinet and the Katana line is not great in general. So that's where I'm going with this, is that there are compromises made in the cheaper amps that I think are more impactful on your sound. I just don't feel like they make great backup amps, right? I don't want to dispute that at all. But for guys that are like, and I've seen these people lately, they gig out, a couple times a year. They come into the store and they're like, I need a new amp. And they're like, but I don't want to spend more than like $300. I'm going, what the hell are you doing? You're playing a gig and you don't want to spend any more than $300. Get the fuck out of here. Like, really? What do you think this is? It would be like trying to take, you remember when they had the Fender had the DSP series? So it's like a Deluxe 90 DSP. That's like buying a Deluxe 90 DSP and trying to do like a live gig with it. And yes, it'll be loud enough, but it's going to sound like shit. So
I think that, well, again, we're getting to where the quote unquote gigging musician, we talked about this recently.
I guess this has to go in the same.
It's going lighter.
The same line of thought of like people using a pedal board directly into a PA, kind of thing. And that's like, I get it. At least
I just feel step up from that.
It's a compromise, is what it is. For you to do that, you're basically saying my tone isn't that important. And okay, maybe it isn't. Maybe I'm wrong. But at least for me, like, no, I at least want to be heard. That's really important to me. And I don't feel like I could get away with 3 pedals into a speaker simulator, into a PA. Helix, maybe that's another thing. But even then, I know I'm going to have problems with it because I'm not going to be able to get the air moving behind me, which is important because the guitar vibrates. Who would have thought you have sympathetic vibration from the speaker and the guitar? So I don't know. It's just
and those are things. I think that comes down to the music as well. I mean, let's face it. If you're playing we talked about this. You're playing a church gig, right? You're not worried about vibrating your guitar with the loudness of that speaker, depending on your church, I suppose. So, and that's a huge market, man. It's a huge market, and those are gigs, whether we want to look at them that way or not. Those are gigs.
I'll tell you what it is, Jim. It's the bedroom player. It's the guy who plays in his bedroom who, doesn't want to spend money on amplification because he never turns it up. He's never pushing it loud enough to actually care. So when they go to I don't want to be judgmental of church players. It's not what I'm trying to say. But if you're a primarily bedroom player, maybe the only place you play out is at church. In which case, okay, so you go to church with your Katana 50, and that's plenty for you. And I get that. But I just feel like that compromise has happened because you never use it at volume. Honestly, that's the whole reason why my Mesa Boogie isn't at my condo. It's at my parents' place where I do most of my practice because it's loud as shit. I couldn't get away with it in the condo. But at the same time, I need to be able to play it loud enough that I can feel my guitar reacting the way it's supposed to. And that's part of the whole feedback loop system. So I think we've got this whole revolution going on right now. People are like, get rid of the cabinets. I don't think it'll stay that way long term. If guitar continues to have like its own avenue in music, you will still see cabinets on stage because people will still be like, look, I got to have my guitar moving and I can't do that with a wedge.
But I'm going to say this, as bands become more and more international and the money, the big thing has been the money. Money drives it. If the band doesn't have the budget to either rent or because let's face it, shipping a stack of 4x12s from the States to Europe is not going to be there. So are you going to have a set of them there, or are you going to rent them?
I'm going to disagree.
Or you're going to buy them and put them in a thing. I'm just saying. Let me finish. So more and more musicians are packing everything into their bags, and they are traveling with their gear more than we've ever seen, ever.
Now, here's why. Okay? It has nothing to do with the finances of renting equipment. It has nothing to do with the finances of it. It has everything to do with the fact that you get a rider and it says, I'm going to have a Marshall. And then you show up and it's a fucking solid state Marshall. You have no idea what you're going to get. You literally have no idea what you're going to get. It's a crapshoot. That's why. It's not necessarily the finances. Look, renting an amp for a gig doesn't cost dick. It's in the grand scheme of things for a touring act playing festivals in Europe, that doesn't mean shit. It's the situation where you show up and what you expect to be there is something else that's literally hot garbage.
Sometimes it's just not available anymore.
Yeah, I mean, they run into that. So, yes, not every band can be Guns N' Roses where they have a warehouse over in Britain filled with amps and cabinets for touring Europe. I get that.
And who do you think that some of these bands rent from when they get over there? They say, hey, Guns N' Roses, can I rent your stuff?
Yeah, it happens.
And sometimes they say no, for the same reason Guitar Center doesn't want that asshole to take the guitar off the shelf because he doesn't treat his stuff with respect. So, plus there's times when they know, hey, this stuff is, who was it that I saw that, I don't know if it was Steve Miller or somebody was saying there's no way. Oh, it was Brian Setzer. There's gear that Brian Setzer has. He has bought all of it. Like you can't find any more of it in the world. I can't remember if it's certain tubes or certain heads.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
But he ran out and he bought them all. Yeah. Every one of them that was on the market, they're gone. And so, and you know what who he loans them to? No one.
Yep.
So until he dies, they're not going back on the market.
It's his thing.
So, yeah, and so there are things you'd be surprised and shocked and amazed, like some musicians that like Boss ME 80s. So, or I'm not ME 80s, the old Boss ME, the early MEs.
Yeah.
And so there was this one musician had like 5 of them because they do break.
And
so he has a
spare.
technician. Yeah, he's got one of them just parts. So he buys them all the time just to have parts. So there are there, and all I'm saying is, a rider, you know, and I know that the band is responsible for everything on the rider.
Yeah.
So when I say responsible, I mean financially responsible. So if I say, yeah, I want these things, and then they show up and then they get stolen, guess who's responsible?
Yeah.
So there's a whole lot of there's insurance issues and all kinds of things. I only recently heard about why, like, it was a Bruce Kulick or something wasn't officially a member of KISS because he never signed his contract.
Same thing with what you said right now, though. Like, you're still responsible for it, whether or not it's on your rider or you brought it with you. And so I guess what I'm saying, price-wise, I forget who it was, but I saw somebody who had 4 Axe-Fx's that they took with them to Europe every time they'd go, because they'd need 2 on stage and 2 for spare, right? Which means that's $12,000 in guitar processors on the road with them.
Yeah.
Do you think a band that's putting out $12,000 for guitar processors could not afford to have a rented amp?
You're right. All right. There's that side of it. There's also more and more bands that you would never think are not playing stadiums.
Yeah.
They're playing clubs. They're playing, especially when you go across Europe. You know, you're playing in all these what are considered clubs, like that place you saw Malmsteen.
Right.
Was a club, right?
Yeah.
How many people would you fit in there?
It probably seats 2,000, 3,000. Small.
Okay, 2,000. So it's what we call a club and what you're calling a club, completely different thing. But it's a small it's a small amphitheater. But it's the equivalent of playing, you know, your local bijou, for lack of a better term, or your cinema. So if, let's say you could get 3,000 people, you're going to pay to rent the hall because somebody's going to pay them. So
I don't need an economics lesson. Like, I understand. There's cost involved, and I think our listeners get that too. My point is that if we're making these moves towards smaller amps, the Katana is not aimed at the guy going to Europe. Okay, that's all I'm getting at.
No, that's what I was saying earlier.
Okay.
The Katana is aimed at the bedroom player / church goer, church player. I honestly think that. And like we said before, the churches have got more instruments in them than they ever had. When I grew up, you were lucky if you saw an acoustic guitar. You were hippies if you had an acoustic guitar at church. You have a guitar at church.
Yeah.
What a blasphemous person.
Yes, you need to burn in hell.
That was only the 70s, man. So we're not talking that long ago. So in the last I'm not really sure when the churches moved towards this more open music. What, the late 70s, early 80s? Right? They started that movement.
Yeah, but
that was with the Amy Grant, and
all
Michael
those people, right?
Or Michael W. Smith, and all those guys. So you're looking at a whole new thing that broadened it out, and those folks, and I'm one of them. They're always looking to make it small, compact, no noise on stage, because you've got everybody from 3-year-olds to 300-year-olds in the place.
Well, and a lot of the places they play are not designed to sound good acoustically.
No.
Yes, I know churches, you'd think a church would be designed that way, but a lot of them aren't. That's starting to change. I think a lot of the newer churches, they're bringing in acoustic technicians and design consultants and things to get the job done. In fact, I think we know some people that probably actually do that for a living. A
lot of your smaller churches are renting. They're renting VFWs. They're renting small halls. They rent movie theaters.
Whatever
down
they can.
Here. Yeah, down here there's a huge theater in downtown Norfolk, and a large church rents it. And you would think, wow, they've got money. I mean, a lot of people go in there, but they're still saving up, because a church costs $1 million, $3 million, depending on where you live, to put together. We've got a $10 million church in our town here.
We have some stuff like that too. We have mega churches here.
Yeah, there's the Rock Church. All right. The one here, the mega church.
So I want to wrap this episode up because I am losing my voice. But I want to wrap it up, and I want to ask all of our church playing listeners a question. How easily could what you do in a church setting be replaced with a synthesizer? Sound off in the group. Let's talk about it.
That's a good one.
I have been David.
I have been Jim.
And this has been The Practical Guitarist.